What's up, crackers? I'm Jean-Luc. I'm the host of Crying in the Book Club. This is episode 40. We're talking about Darth Vader, the 2015 Darth Vader series. I'm joined, as always, by my friends and yours. Alex is here.
It's good that Darth Vader also is a cracker.
Indeed. And Emily is also here.
He was roasted like a cracker.
Heyo,
It's
roasted
true.
crackers.
Is a roasted cracker a thing? Do you roast crackers?
I like baked. Like,
Still the
you
same?
know, I was just thinking of
Roasted
of
crackers.
words for being
On an
set
open
on
fire.
fire.
Well, he was more of a baked cracker, right? They have baked crackers.
Yeah.
So that's not like being set on fire, but it's, being exposed to
Extreme heat.
a high amount of heat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, hello. I didn't have anything prepared for the start of this episode, so I was just like,
good.
what's up? How's everybody doing? How are you guys doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah? Alex,
Yeah.
are you doing pretty good, or are you doing pretty bad?
I'm doing pretty good.
That's exciting.
As I said last episode, did a Riverdale murder mystery night, which was very
Oh,
fun.
yeah.
Very
I-
fun.
And just pictures. It was incredible.
It was neato. Neato. And now
Do you want to give us the plot of this Riverdale murder mystery?
So it's prom night. It's a big night in
Of
Riverdale.
course.
And all of the people you want to be there, are there. That includes, Betty, Veronica, Archie. There's a list.
Dark Betty,
which was great. They were two different people, hanging out. Kevin Caller, Reggie Mantle, Cheryl Blossom. You got Fangs Fogarty. You got Nick Scratch, which was really funny because he was dead the whole time, and was just being like, "Hey, I'm Nick Scratch." It's like, okay, interesting. Tony, a little Hiram Lodge, some Miss Grundy, of course. You need Miss Grundy chaperoning, watching out for the kids.
the most important Riverdale character.
Yeah, Principal Weatherby, Alice Cooper,
Well,
and of
I
course,
mean, they wouldn't put her in all the thumbnails for all the promotional material if she wasn't important.
Of course.
true. And the last character, Baby Anthony, the chosen one, literally, fought with Satan, won, came out on top. So that was cool. And it's prom night, and people are just hanging out. Everyone's got their own little secrets. And by the time it was round based, you would have to do things on your card every round, kind of thing. And you have 20 minutes to do it as you're going around. And then after round 2, Betty Cooper dies. What? And it turns out she was poisoned. What? So we had to solve.
What?
Who would do this? Would it be Archie, who's now off with Miss Grundy, the woman that he now loves, and is leaving Betty behind?
Well, the woman he always loved, some might say.
That's true. Some
wouldn't,
say
but
that.
you could, I guess.
Some might.
There's got to be some like diehard Miss Grundy Archie
Miss
shippers out
Grungy.
there. Miss Grungy.
Ooh,
I like that.
That's good.
Their ship name is Grunge.
It's very fitting. It's very fitting. But then there's also, the lodges, Veronica and her dad are fighting because they have rum versus whiskey, and they're having their little fight. And it's like, well, it was the alcohol that was poisoned, so it could have been them. Then Cheryl has a poison flower that she has, and it's the same poison that was in the drink. So it's like, it could be her. But it turned out to be Betty's mom, because Betty was just too much work. Always doing stuff.
Honestly deserved.
And so, she just wanted a nice, happy family with her, Dark Betty, Hal, all those people. So, yeah, that was the murder and the mystery.
Incredible.
It was very cute.
Sounds very fun.
Yeah.
You know what else is very fun?
Hmm.
Darth Vader.
So
He's
true.
He's a fun guy. He enjoys, going to murder mystery parties on the weekends.
He does.
Got a big group of friends. And at the end, they always torture somebody to death, and that's the best part. Some would say, from their perspective.
I'm just glad that Darth Vader's kind of, he's kind of a character you see him in the movies, and you don't see too much of him. He doesn't do too much, but it's his presence. So I'm glad that people take a less is more approach. We don't have like a 25 issue series about him. Is my Darth Vader take? Yeah.
Well, there is a 25 issue series about him. That's what we're talking about.
Oh.
Okay. And there's in fact another series after that about him.
Okay.
And even a third one.
Huh.
So,
well,
I don't know if you were aware of this, but I'm sorry if you're just now learning about it.
It's okay. I'll just have to bullshit some stuff. It'd be no problem.
So yeah, we are talking about the 2015 Darth Vader series, written by Kieron Gillen, who I don't think we've talked about a Kieron Gillen book on this show before, but I know
this is our first.
All of us are Kieron Gillen fans to one degree or another, and it's drawn by Salvador Larroca, who was largely known for, I believe, an Iron Man run that people really liked before coming on to Darth Vader, which, feels like a pretty natural connection to go from Iron Man to Darth Vader.
Sure.
One of those guys is a really cool dude in a suit, and the other one is Iron Man.
So true.
So this is one of the first series after the Disney acquisition of the Star Wars license. Prior to 2015, the Star Wars license had been at Dark Horse, although originally it was at Marvel. And then in the 90s, it went to Dark Horse, and Dark Horse had it for about 20 years, published a lot of different Star Wars comics all throughout the timeline. And then when Disney acquired it, given that they also own Marvel, in addition to Star Wars, they decided, well, why don't we just bring that in-house and, not farm it out to Dark Horse anymore? Why don't we try to make some money off of this? Which, to be fair, they could have made money off of it by having Dark Horse continue paying the licensing fee, but for whatever reason, they were like, let's just bring it in-house. And then they farmed some of it out to IDW. I don't understand.
It doesn't make sense.
I think at some point they realized, Marvel Comics is so incompetent, we have to get somebody else to publish the Star Wars comics. So IDW did it for a while, published not all of them, but some of the Star Wars comics for a while. But anyway, this is like the second of the series that Marvel launched, I believe. The first one is the titular just Star Wars, which follows, the other guys, Luke, Han, Leia, the secondary characters from the original trilogy.
Fucking nobodies.
Yeah, nobody, the people no one cares about. But this series follows Darth Vader, everybody's favorite Star Wars character. And it takes place, it picks up like pretty much directly after the destruction of the Death Star at the end of A New Hope. And it all takes place in between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. So it kind of slots into that continuity. It was, like I said, it was written by Kieron Gillen. He actually he turned down an opportunity to write Iron Man to write Darth Vader instead, which
hell yeah.
He mentioned that in an interview, and I'm like, that doesn't seem like much of a trade-off. Like, wouldn't anybody turn down writing Iron Man to write Darth Vader? Like,
what year was this?
2015. So probably 2014 when he would have gotten the offer.
That's like peak MCU though, and if you're buying into that and you're like, whoa,
I guess,
Captain America Civil War. And there hasn't been a Star Wars movie in many years.
Civil War actually hadn't come out yet, right? Civil War is 2016.
The lead up.
Yeah, but they were like, it was.
Force Awakens was 2014,
right?
15. Force Awakens was 2015.
Okay, so it's a high point for. Well, it's a exciting time for Star Wars too.
This is the hype. This is the Star Wars hype cycle restarting.
Yeah.
Basically, so it was a good time. Well,
there was a lot of there was a New Hope. A New Hope.
Like in terms of quality, I think we can all agree that like Darth Vader is the obvious choice, but like in terms of just like, I don't know, clout, like it could have been a toss up, but like this was obviously the superior choice and we are all better off for it. I'm sure whatever Gillen would have done with an Iron Man comic would have been good because like he fucking rocks, but we are better off, I think, that this is the book that he wrote.
I agree with Emily. I don't give a shit about Iron Man. I've read a decent number of Iron Man comics. I have not cared about it. Like, not that they're bad. I just don't care about them. But even the bad Darth Vader comics, I'm like, damn, I care about that. I'm invested in this. I read that Charles Soule run all the way through. Had some good stuff, but mostly was not very good. But anyway, I guess I'll give your spoiler warning for this in case you don't know what happens to Darth Vader, which
Only good
he
things.
dies at the end of Return of the Jedi. Sorry, guys.
Oh my gosh.
It's over for Darth Vader. But like I said, just to briefly go over the plot, and I'll try to be brief because we did read all 25 issues plus the annual, so there's a lot of plot in here. But like I said, Darth Vader picks up shortly after the destruction of the first Death Star. And, of course, Emperor Palpatine, not a happy camper that the, super expensive galaxy-spanning project that was supposed to crush the rebellion got blown up by 6 guys in the equivalent of 1995 Ford pickup trucks. That's insulting to the X-Wings, but, they weren't supposed to get away with that. So he kind of lashes out at Darth Vader because Darth Vader is like the remnant of the Imperial leadership. Even though Darth Vader, he does point out in his internal monologue, I didn't think the Death Star was a particularly good idea, but Emperor Palpatine doesn't care about that. He blames Darth Vader for it and strips him of basically all of his command responsibilities and assigns him to work under General Tag, who is basically the new Grand General, I believe is his title in this book, of the Imperial Armed Forces. Vader's not happy about that, so he begins to develop his own, seek out his own resources, start building up his own forces. So he seeks out some allies. He first finds Dr. Aphra and her lovely murder droids, 000 and BT-1, and brings them into the fold. Now that with them around, he also heads to Geonosis, kills a Geonosian queen, and takes and just rips a droid factory out of Geonosis and is like, this is my droid factory now. We're going to start making assassin droids with this, and does. So now that he's got, some new allies, he's got like a strike force of assassin droids. He uncovers a conspiracy headed by a scientist named Silo 4 to create replacement apprentices for Palpatine. And so he goes to Silo 4's headquarters with his, squadron of assassin droids. He finds some really cool guys there. The Astartes twins. There's Captain Carbon, who is a Mon Calamari head on General Grievous's body, which is very cool. There's Toulon, who is like this sick woman with cool goggles and some kinds of psychometry powers of some kind. And there's a Trandoshan there, but Darth Vader kills him. He just insta drops him. But before things can really kick off, Palpatine shows up and is like, hey man, this was my idea, actually. I wanted these guys around. I, thought maybe you sucked. There was an off chance that you were bad at your job. And I wanted to have some people waiting in the wings. So Palpatine brings them into the fold, puts them all under the command of General Tag, sort of as competition for Darth Vader. And then at the end of the first arc, Darth Vader also learns the name of the pilot who destroyed the Death Star, Luke Skywalker, which means nothing to him because it's like, who's that guy? Skywalker, what does that mean?
Skywalker?
Don't know any of that. So the second arc kicks off. We've got Dr. Aphra and her bounty hunters going after an Imperial cruiser, and you're like, wait, I thought Dr. Aphra was in with the Imperials. And it turns out that the heist was actually done for Vader so that he could build up his own fortune inside of the Empire so that he could, buy his own resources and fund his, his little side projects that he's looking into. He also sends Aphra out on these missions. They go to Tatooine and find they go to the Lars residence and burn it down. Vader kills some more Tusken Raiders because there's not enough Tusken Raiders to kill. There's always more Tusken Raiders that Anakin Skywalker can kill. Aphra also goes to Naboo and finds out that Padme Amidala was in fact no longer pregnant when her body arrived on Naboo in Revenge of the Sith. So we're starting to notice a trend here of maybe Darth Vader's kids are alive, which he did not know. Also, while this is all going on, this is all kind of background to Darth Vader being assigned to root out a group of rebels operating in the Outer Rim called the Plasma Devils. He's also assigned an Inspector Thanoth, who is his liaison with Grand General Tag, and Thanoth immediately is suspicious of what Darth Vader is up to. He immediately gets a whiff of maybe this guy isn't all on the up and up. Maybe the Sith Lord cannot be trusted. But, who can say? Every time, so Thanoth is kind of investigating the heist in a lot of very slapstick Tom and Jerry Looney Tunes kind of ways. Darth Vader is always one step ahead, preventing him from learning the truth. And then when he does get right there, he's about to get Aphra and get the truth about what they did. Vader reminds him they found the location of the Plasma Devil's base, and Vader goes and throws his lightsaber at some Y-wings. It's pretty cool. And they kill the rebel cells, or the rebel cell rather, and move on from Thanoth for now. But in all of that chaos, Aphra finished her mission and found Luke's location, which was on the planet of Vrogos Voss. And Vader, Aphra, and all of these droids, the cool murder droids, head out to Vrogos Voss and get lured right into the Rebels' trap. Vader crash lands. This is the Vader down crossover, the Vader down bad crossover, as we like to say. Vader begins a relentless hunt for Luke in the desert. He runs into, Leia's there. They hang out for a little bit. Leia does this whole thing where she's like, I'm going to sit here with this transponder, and you're going to bomb the transponder because it's going to kill Darth Vader, and I'm going to be martyred, but it's fine because we'll kill Vader in the process. But just as the Y-Wing squadron is about to start their bombing run, Captain Carbon's forces show up to keep Vader alive so that Carbon can kill him himself, which, let me tell you, everyone in this book who's kills somebody, saves Darth Vader's life and is like, no, I'm going to be the one to kill him. Things do not go well for those people. He always just 3 pages later is just stepping over their dead corpse. It doesn't really work for them. So Vader is able to escape, but so are Luke, Han, and Leia. They actually are able to capture Aphra and escape with her captured. The next arc, Vader, not concerned about Aphra that much. He's sent to the planet of Shu-Torun, which is a critical mining world that is in open rebellion against the Empire. Vader shows up and basically crowns Princess Trios the queen of Shu-Torun by, some political manipulation that in classic Darth Vader fashion basically boils down to, I'm going to kill a bunch of people. And they, begin trying to retake the world. This whole time he's kind of being worked against by by General Tag and Silos, both of whom are trying to bring Vader down for their own reasons. And despite those attempts, Vader is able to completely crush the Ore Baron resistance. He inspires Trios to take on the fighter self as well. And the arc ends with Vader being confronted by Thanoth, who is now fully investigated everything and has learned that Darth Vader is Anakin Skywalker. And you'd think that'd be bad for Darth Vader, but Thanoth is just like, no, actually, I think you're fucking epic, and I want you to take over the Empire instead. So please kill me, and the Empire can live forever. Thank you. And Darth Vader is more than happy to oblige to kill this guy who's been annoying to him the whole time. But not before Thanoth gives him Aphra's location. And this is where we kick off the final arc of the book. Vader is going after Dr. Silos, and 000 and BT-1 are hunting down Dr. Aphra. Both of them find their targets, but Aphra, being, crafty as she is able to exploit 000's systems to evade fully being returned to Darth Vader. But she has been brought to the Executor. As this happens, Silas's grand plan to take over the Empire is unfolding. he successfully steals the Executor, which, by the way, I know I'm just saying the Executor as if everyone knows what that is. That is the first Superstar Destroyer. It is Darth Vader's flagship. We're seeing it being built in over the course of the book. I realize not everybody will know what that is. But as Silos and the remaining Astartes twin succeed in taking the Executor, Vader comes aboard, kills everybody, regains control, and then goes off and kills the remaining Silos clones. He then returns to the Executor, finds out that Aphra just kind of walked into the Emperor's room, said, "Hey, what's up? This is what me and Darth Vader have been up to." So Vader, of course, was betrayed, but again, Palpatine everybody just thinks that like when Vader does bad stuff, they're just like, this guy is awesome. So Palpatine is just like, yeah, Vader, he did all this stuff. Like, it really showed initiative. So good for him. And Vader then jettisons Aphra out the airlock, only for her to then be rescued by Black Krrrsantan, 000, and BT-1. Oh, Black Krrrsantan, by the way, I don't think I've actually mentioned him. He's a Wookiee bounty hunter, big black furred Wookiee bounty hunter, extremely cool guy. Aphra owes him money, so he's kind of just always there trying to make sure he can get his ROI from Aphra. And that's where the run ends, with Darth Vader assuming control of the Executor, being given his command role back, and Aphra now having played the greatest trick of all, convincing Darth Vader that she's dead so she can go off and have adventures in her solo book, which we didn't read. But there is a
But what if we did?
We might at some point. The Kieron Gillen part of the solo book of the Aphra book is very good, so it's definitely worth reading at some point. Especially if
I guess it didn't occur to me briefly that Gillen wouldn't just be writing the whole book. He
wrote it. He wrote the first few arcs of it, at least, if I remember correctly.
Well,
so
I mean,
it is worth reading at least the first little bit of it, especially if you find yourself after reading this to be a Dr. Aphra fan. Which
if you find yourself Aphra reading this,
yeah, that works. But this is both of your guys' first time reading this run, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes.
Cool. Well, before we get into that, and I think this is basically pretty much just a question for Alex. But I'm curious if you guys have any other history with the Star Wars expanded universe, either the current canon or the pre-Disney acquisition canon, and what that looks like coming into this comic book series.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier the Dark Horse days, and that was how I got into it, because I'd go to my local bookstore and they had the nice omnibus, which I called Omnibus, and it would collect just like a nice chunk in a really cool soft cover thing. So I think I had a Darth Maul one that was just him like running around before episode 1 doing fun stuff. He would like attack pod races and just a super cool guy. There was one called Early Victories, which was I think it was between episode 4 and 5 as well. So kind of in the same thing here, but in the old universe. And I always thought those were so cool. And I never really thought about is this canon with the Star Wars movies I've seen or anything as a kid? I was just like, this is so cool. Everything's so cool. There's so many cool things with Star Wars. And then this whole Disney Marvel relaunch thing, I just never really read it. It was something I've meant to read. I heard that the Lando book was mid, which makes me sad. But I heard good things about the Star Wars series and about obviously Gillen's Vader. And I'm glad that jumping into it now. And of course, I've read. Nice. I've been reading some of the old novels and stuff, but that's not comic talk. But those are always cool. I just love. Yeah, it's nice having the Star Wars stories and all that. And Darth Vader is very good. It does feel. I mean, obviously, to think about Vader right there, it feels a little like there is a lot of cool stuff in here, but also feels like very not too far from what's actually happening in the movies and stuff. Whereas a lot of the extended stuff that I liked before is like really out there and stuff going on. So. All in all, yes, good Vader.
Okay. Emily, was I correct in assuming that you have zero history with the EU?
Okay, well, I would like to say that in our notes doc, this question is what is your history with the extended universe and Darth Vader? And no, I don't have very much experience with the extended universe.
Look, I wrote it that way because
with Darth Vader.
I wrote it that way because I didn't want to write out what is your history with twice. They were two separate questions. So maybe trust the host of the podcast for once, Emily.
No, it's
what's your history with Darth? You're like the only person who likes Revenge of the Sith more than me, as far as I know.
Yeah, I actually, before we read this for the show, I already owned the first trade of this because I had bought it. Because I mean, Kieron Gillen, I feel like I can safely say is like my favorite comics writer. Like The Way and the Divine is my favorite series. So like when I heard that he wrote or was at the time writing a Darth Vader series, I was like, hell yeah. But I just never got around to reading it because that's just who I am as a person. This is my first time reading this book specifically, but my feelings on Darth Vader, I feel like, can be summed up with one of my favorite videos on the internet is an edit that someone has made of Anakin Skywalker clips from Revenge of the Sith. And the video is called Anakin the Skywalker because it is clips of Anakin Skywalker set to a Megan Thee Stallion song. And just to quote that video... I do hot shit. Finish income on my outfit. I don't text quick because I ain't thirsty. These bitches mad. They want to hurt me. And I feel like that really just sums up my feelings on Darth Vader. I feel like you can't really get any more specific than that. I love Anakin Skywalker. I love Darth Vader. I'm glad that this podcast gave me an excuse to finally make myself read a book that I bought like 5 years ago.
Maybe if you were a real Anakin Skywalker fan, you would have read this by now, but...
no, I'm a fake fan. It's fine. Yeah.
Did you like it?
Oh, I did. I enjoyed this immensely. I really did.
Glad. Did
and
you
I knew
like
I would.
Yeah, no, I really did enjoy it. I like the... Nice. I'd say I like the first 12 issues more than the middle-ish chunk, but then I think the ending is a pretty good banger overall. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. I'm curious how you guys felt about the tone of the book, because Darth Vader is obviously this menacing guy. The first time you see him, he's just stepping over bodies and choking, torturing people. He's not a good dude, but that can obviously be maybe a little hard to translate to other mediums. So I'm curious how you felt about the tone this book strikes, and about how, Gillen uses the supporting cast, characters like 000, Aphra, BT1, the Silos apprentices, just generally how you guys felt about that. And if anything from that really stood out to you.
Unfortunately, I do feel like it's difficult because on the one hand, do I love when Darth Vader is doing Darth Vader shit? Yes, of course. On the other hand, there are moments in this book where it does feel like he's a little OP. I get that this is Darth Vader the book, so he's gotta come out on top no matter what's happening, because that's what I mean. And not to, when I say that this is happening because that's what the people want, I don't want to insinuate that I think that Kieron Gillen is writing with the aim of doing what people want. I just think that that's just kind of a natural progression for someone who is a fan of Darth Vader to go to kind of make him OP. But there were moments and by OP I of course mean overpowered. I assume everyone in the audience gets that, but I just wanted to make sure I'm clear. But there were moments where I'm like, okay, yeah, you know, like, how are they going to get out of this one? Darth Vader's going to kill everybody.
Well, I mean, that is core to Darth Vader.
Yeah, no, and I enjoyed it,
part.
but it's just, you know, that is just a thing about it, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I mean, in terms of like the tone of the book, I think it's great because Darth Vader never makes a joke. He's very, you know, Darth Vader throughout, but everyone around him, or like a lot of characters around him, are doing that, and a lot of times they die. I mean, and a lot of that is Aphra, who is a really cool character and kind of skirts that line of like, kind of being like one of those quippy characters, but also like it just works. And you know, Aphra like also is like, oh, Darth Vader is really cool. I'm fine if people like are getting killed all the time. That's whatever. That's neat. So it's Aphra is definitely a cool character. And then it's the two droids that are just so hilarious. It's like the C-3PO R2-D2 like stand-ins that are just like completely unhinged.
I love them like, so much. And I knew I had heard about 000 before reading this book. So I was like, I was aware of what I was going to be getting into, but God, he is so delightful and charming, and the relationship between him, like the two of them, is truly, you know, like a running highlight of the book.
Yeah. 000 is a great time. One of the great Star Wars tropes, like going back to like Knights of the Old Republic, is the like psychopathic murder droid. And 000 is a great installment in that. I love his dynamic with Aphra too, where so Aphra like steals the 000 matrix, which is like a coding, a specific coding that goes into a droid, and puts it into this protocol droid, who's then becomes, you know, 000. And 000 just constantly goes on about how like he would love nothing more than to go on a death rampage across the galaxy, but like hanging out with Aphra is kind of fun, so he's entertained enough that he doesn't need to, you know, go out and do stuff. Like he doesn't need to like give in to his real mean streak. So.
He's like C-3PO in that one scene from the Rise of Skywalker. He's evil. Yeah, okay. Evil C-3PO.
When they download the Sith OS into C-3PO.
Yeah. Well, it's also funny because
when they stick a mustache on him,
they give him red eyes. Actually,
in this book, they actually meet, and Triple O takes C-3PO's arms, which is just a fun little moment. Yeah. We're saying, oh, like I don't have arms right now. Let me take yours. Which is just it's a sweet moment. You know, it's a passing.
There's a lot of good 000 moments in the book.
Yeah. I mean, if I had just been taking screenshots of good 000 moments, I think I would have filled up my phone's storage.
Yeah, I love. There's also that bit in the last arc where they go to restock from like a sort of shady arms dealer.
The little adventure.
And the arms dealer is like. The arms dealer, like, he takes 000's arms off to replace them, and like he uses the opportunity to install a program that's like, okay, well, if you ever kill me, you'll die too. And 000 and BT1 are just like, okay, fine, we're gonna have a great business relationship, and then they leave. But it turns out that BT1 sliced. Sliced in new programming for all of the other droids that this guy is working on. And then just having this dialogue as they walk out, like, I wonder if he treated those droids very well. Maybe he has a chance of surviving if he didn't. And then, you know, it just, the workshop just blows up behind them. You're like, oh, I guess not. 000 rocks. Kieron Gillen absolutely nails, like, the right tone for that character.
Everything that 000 does should just be followed by ba-da-ba.
He does kind of give off off that vibe.
Like it's so murderous, but so charming and delightful.
Yeah. He does have a lot of charm. And then, you know, of course, Aphra is kind of the breakout star of this book. She became like a very popular
000 and Aphra are two just extremely Kieron Gillen characters.
Absolutely.
In my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's kind of necessary too because like there is some interiority to Vader here, but like you do need the sort of
He
you need
needs a
the characters.
foil.
Yeah, you need foils for Vader so that it's not just all 100% Darth Vader all the
Yeah.
time because that I don't know. I feel like that could probably be a little grating.
There are certainly
Um,
people who would want that, but I don't care about the opinions of those people.
what you don't want an entire book that's like Darth Vader's interiority and his like sadness? You would love
No, no,
that.
no, no, no. I
Is it
would.
Charles
No,
Fulton?
I'm talking about a book that is like just the Darth Vader that we get
Oh,
and then
yeah,
nothing else.
yeah. No, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I would love give me like as many issues as possible about sad Anakin shower thoughts. Like
what's he thinking about when he's in that little chamber that he takes with him everywhere? Like,
well,
what's he
I
thinking
mean,
about?
clearly not the
The
younglings
boys.
that he killed, because apparently when Asuka brought that up, he was like, "What? That old thing that I did?" So, probably not any of the atrocities he's committed, if I have to say.
Did you just pronounce Ahsoka like Asuka?
No, it's because I don't. It's because I don't Star Wars, and the
Okay,
only name that I hear that's like that is Asuka from Evangelion. So
Evangelion.
just my brain immediately pronounce. I know that it's Ahsoka. Like
It took me a
but
minute to figure out what
just
you actually meant.
no.
I
It's just if I'm just speaking off the cuff, that's how I'm gonna pronounce that name. Unfortunately,
I was like, is there some like meme video where
no,
Asuka from Evangelion? Okay.
no.
Well, yeah. That's that was funny. I found that pronunciation.
I'm glad that that amused you.
It did. It did. To sort of move from away from well, not completely away from the characters because those characters obviously play into this. But what did you guys think about how much of this is sort of like about the like internal politics of the Empire and like the push and pull of the power struggles between Darth Vader and some of the other players in the Empire? Because it's not something that we like when we see them in the movies. They're all always like they seem like a force that's completely in lockstep. And like, okay, yeah, Vader kills people when they don't do what he want when they fuck up. But
But
they you don't see that layer of it. So I'm curious how you guys
it
felt
was
about that as a sort of
it was
storytelling
neat.
tool.
It was cool to see the guy from The New Hope who's like kind of challenges Vader. I think that was him, right?
That is tag, yeah.
He's like, I'm alive, and I'm in charge of you, Darth Vader. And Darth Vader's like, I don't like that. And then, by the end of the story, he ends up dying, and Vader takes his control. But yeah, it was cool just seeing, Vader is in a way very out of his element with all these power things. He's kind of just like, I trust the Force. I'm an unstoppable killing machine. I can do this. And they're like, well, actually, you're like third in command right now, and these people are your replacement, and you got to play nice with them because you're kind of disappointing the Death Star blew up. And he's like, well, that wasn't my fault. I didn't support it. And then he's like, well, you know what? You didn't say anything, so it's kind of on you. So it was a little fish out of watery, but also nice to see him sort of become this sort of character who is capable of like doing all this deception and playing all these games and doing that kind of stuff. So it was cool. And I think it was a nice balance where it didn't feel like it was too much of the like, oh, political games and stuff. There was still some cool action, some really cool characters like good old General Grievous, Akbar Man, and yeah.
I liked it a lot because I do feel like in these Star Wars movies, we get sort of this idea of the Empire as like a united front. And I feel like with a bunch of evil dudes, especially ones who very clearly have like ego problems, like you're gonna have problems like this. You're gonna have like internal power struggles like this, and so it's fun to get to actually see that and to see like Darth Vader as a participant in that. I don't
Yeah.
know if I don't like what I want to say is I don't know if I 100% love every way that was executed. like I enjoyed this book, and I don't know that I would really change much about it, but there were some like, I don't know, there's something about the like, I might replace you with one of these like group of ragtag potential replacements. There was nothing about any of those characters that really felt like they were a threat to Darth Vader or his status in any way at any point during the book.
Except Carbon.
I just
He's sick.
at no point did I really feel like anyone was like actually like, I mean, it's hard, on the one hand, like I want to say at no point did I feel like any of them were a threat to him, but also none of them can be a threat because of like the way that the Star Wars movies play out. You already know that none of them could be, but like even there was no point where I like got lost in the fiction where I forgot for a moment that I know how this all plays out.
Well, because they're all kind of like cheap knockoffs, which I think is like somewhat intentional.
Sure.
Because like the idea is, I think it's kind of an interesting parallel for Darth Vader himself, who is like in some ways a cheap knockoff of Anakin Skywalker, right? Like he's slower. He's not in touch with the Force in the same way that Anakin was, which isn't something that this book necessarily touches on as much.
Yeah.
But I think it is fitting that like you have the Astartes twins who are like Jedi without the Force, which is like, what's the point of you? Like,
yeah,
what are you? And like, General Grievous, but worse.
Yeah.
It is kind of an interesting parallel. I don't think Kieron Gillen like fully pulls on that string, but I do enjoy how like when the time comes, like I think it is like a good piece of characterization that like none of them really offer much of a threat to Vader. Like even in the arc where they're on Shu-Torun and the Astartes twins ambush him, like the way that ends is the brother ambushes, like betrays the sister and like leaves her to die. But even before that, it's like Vader was handling them, right? Like it was not really, it wasn't even like really that close of a fight beforehand anyway.
No.
So I kind of like that element of it. I mean, if anything, I wish there was more of that sort of political stuff. Like one of my favorite issues is the annual, and like that is actually my favorite arc of the story of the book. I think is the Shu-Torun War.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I wish that Darth Vader had danced.
Yeah,
I wish, I wish that, like, I wish there had, like, I don't know how in character it would be or whatever. I wish they had danced. I think that would have been like fun and interesting.
I think it would have been fun, but I think you can't have Darth Vader do stuff. Like Darth Vader's not going to do stuff like that.
No, but I feel like it would have been like an interesting show of like diplomacy or something from him.
But that's the thing is like Vader's not like I think the thing about the Shu-Torun War that's so good is it's just like this emphasis that like Vader's not there to play politics or do diplomacy. I know. He does because he like completely manipulates. He completely like molds Trios into like a disciple of his.
The like Trios girl boss arc, like I love immensely. Even though like I know like it's awful or whatever. Like I don't care. It's fun and I like it.
I agree. It's like like obviously she is a villain especially by the end when she is. But so is
he. It's Darth Vader.
That's the whole point.
That's the book.
The worst thing about that is that in later books, Trios joins the Rebel Alliance, which, in my opinion, is such a dog shit twist for her character, and like makes no sense whatsoever.
Oh, I hate that.
obviously, like, she is manipulated by Vader here, and like at first she clearly does not feel great about that.
Yeah.
But it feels like a similar thing where, like, by the end, like, it's kind of like Anakin, like, she gets a taste of the power and it's like, oh my god, I can do so much cool shit.
Yeah, it seems like she's kind of like genuinely on board, even if it like took a little bit, you know.
She's like Padme, except like when Anakin was trying to riz Padme by talking about how fascism was cool, she would have just been like, "That's so true, babe."
Like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's I like that. I like that.
Yeah, I thought that was really fun, and I'm disappointed to hear that she actually joins the rebels.
Yeah, it's a bad.
It's
not Gillen's fault, but it's just a bad move for her character.
Oh, sure, yeah. Just corny.
Going back to the just like how none of the, guys going up against Vader, they're all kind of cheap knockoffs. I would kind of be disappointed if anyone was actually like a threat to him, because they're not mentioned in the movies, and I know it's like obvious because the movies came out first and stuff, but it'd be a little weird if like this person almost killed Darth Vader to an inch of his life and they just never talk about it. Obviously it didn't happen yet, but
it felt like they were like not a threat at all, and I would like just maybe like a step above that where like I could maybe get a little lost in the fiction of it, even if I know that, like, this is not somebody who could have been relevant enough to come up in the movies.
Yeah, it's tough because in the old EU, like, there were equivalents of these characters who were the people that, like, Palpatine was like kind of raising up. So you have like Mara Jade and Lumia and Brachus and like all these kind of guys, but like it was
also a little more like Wild Westy, definitely in the old EU,
definitely. But they're almost too like hyper competent. Like they don't really go up against Vader, but like the way they're portrayed, like you kind of get the sense that like Mara Jade could have held her own against Darth Vader,
sure.
Some of those other characters could have held their own against Darth Vader in a way that's like, okay, well, if so Palpatine just had like 6 Darth Vaders running around. Like, how did he lose? Like, how do you have 6 Darth Vaders and lose? And whereas here it's like, yeah, he has like on a good day 2 Darth Vaders. And that's like the amalgamation of the others can sometimes equate to one Darth Vader.
Mm-hmm.
I love too that like at the end, Void Gazer, like, she like sets a rancor on him with like all these like biogenic enhancements and shit, and he just like, no, he just kills it like in 2 panels or something. Like that's like a whole tense scene for Luke in Return of the Jedi. Like he has to fight it with a bone and like get the door down on it, and Vader's just like, no, I sliced it, so I stabbed it, I killed it. It's dead.
And it's great because it's like the moment you meet the Trandoshan, it's like, Trandoshan gets killed, but the person who set it up is like, we could put that on anything like as big as a Rancor.
Oh yeah,
so it's like it's in your head, and then it comes in later, and you're like, and then he just gets. Yep. He just gets smoked.
There's a couple of plot elements like that, like at the heist, the heist that Aphra does, they like jettison a bunch of like the credits into space, and the other bounty hunters are like so sad about it. They're like, "Oh my god, fuck you! You ruined our score. It's so small." And Aphra's like, "Oh my god, I guess sorry guys. I guess I'll let you take it. You guys can just have it. I'll just get washed on this one." And then it turns out that they were using a magnet to get it to the moon, a nearby moon, and that's what she uses at the end also to even after she gets jettisoned out the airlock to.
She loves magnets.
Be saved. She loves magnets. I love a girl who loves magnets.
How the fuck do they work?
No one knows. It's the Force. What if she's the only one who knows how magnets work in this world?
To be so powerful.
Right?
Knowing how, yeah. Excuse me. But yeah, I guess we've talked about Gillen's writing a lot and a lot of the story stuff. I mean, there's definitely more we can talk about as well if you guys had other things that came to mind. But I'm curious how you guys felt about the art. There was a bit of a controversy when the Marvel Star Wars books kicked off because the artists traced the actors' faces. It's not as big of a deal for Darth Vader because you don't see like a lot of the characters too often. But when you do see them, it's very obvious. So I'm
I
curious what you thought about that, and what you thought about the art, maybe more generally as well.
I didn't know that they had been traced. I did just assume that they had been like very heavily referenced, like because it was like, I mean, you can tell that they are. I say extremely spot on, but I don't want to say that to imply that like that's
It's good.
yeah. Like I don't necessarily think that they're like bad. I just like it is also a little uncanny, a little unnerving.
It's extremely
compared
uncanny.
to the way that like just regular ass characters are
It
rendered
really
in these books.
hits in the Vader down arc because in the first stuff, like I mean, Palpatine looks creepy. He doesn't, you don't tell it's Trace. Vader's Vader, but you start seeing Luke and Leia, like you see all those characters, and it's like, huh. It is a little, it is a little uncanny valley, which I don't. Was it like Disney or Marvel that were just like you need?
It was. I'm not clear exactly whose call was, but it was like an editorial decision to do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
They did it in the Poe Dameron book too, which
yeah.
came out around the same time. Just an odd choice.
I'd say so. Yeah.
I will say, at least for me, one of the things that is like the art is actually one of the weaker aspects of this book, just because I think they play it so safe. And like one of the things that I used to love about the Dark Horse Star Wars comics is that they had a bunch of different art styles. Like they weren't so like obviously there were some books that looked like the movies did, but they weren't so like sort of slavishly adherent to the aesthetics and styles of the movies. Like there was more room to like do weirder art styles in the Star Wars universe and stuff. And it is kind of a bummer that it's just so. It's not that Salvador LaRocca is a bad artist or anything. It's just like, well, this just looks fun, but there's no like visual risks or anything taken aside from. And I wouldn't say it's a risk, but the one thing that's really cool is Silas's fleet of ships, which are basically these ships built onto these massive like space whales. Those are pretty sick. But other than that, like, I don't know. I don't find the visuals of this book to stand out all that much.
I don't think that they're a hindrance though. Like I think there wasn't, even though there's the Uncanny Valley stuff, mostly in the Vader Down stuff, I don't think it was something that was like.
I think it's something that impacted the Star Wars book more because you're seeing Luke's face all the time, and it is really distracting because like it's like a lot of the time like the facial expressions don't match what's supposed to be happening on the page, whereas so there it is like a much bigger hindrance than here, where it's just like, okay, well, I wish they didn't do that. Also, Leia looks way older than she's supposed to be a few times. Like, I don't know. There's just some weird stuff there, but I don't know. I always find myself wishing, as with a lot of Star Wars stuff, that they were more willing to take risks. I do love the design of Inspector Thanoth, though. With the mustache that becomes sideburns and the monocle. He has a very strong design for like the kind of character that he is.
He's also super cool. He's just like, you know what, Vader, kill me because I believe in you. And I'm like, oh wow, what a cool guy.
I do love that whole arc too, like the back and forth between them, where like it's pretty obvious that like from the beginning that Thanoth like knows that like Vader is hiding something and that Vader was like involved in this. But like it's again that like Vader's like hyper competence thing where he is just like one step ahead, sometimes in like really silly ways. Like there's the one informant that Vader just like Vader asks him like, will you tell me who did this? And he's like, yes, of course. And Vader just runs him through with a lightsaber. I think he said like, I think he says like, too
bad. What? He has like a one-liner,
And then Thanos like, what happened? And Vader's like, he had a suicide vest. He was going to detonate the whole station. And Thanos like inspects the body and he's like, he was bluffing. Darn. And then the other time there's the other informant who's like about to like tell them about Aphra, and Darth Vader like uses the Force to redirect a stormtrooper blaster shot to kill him. And Thanos just like, how unlucky. It's just
I guess I said earlier that Vader's never comedic, and I get he is very funny. It's not him like on purpose thing, but he's kind of he has that like.
He has like a really dry humor that works really well with this book and is also just like perfectly suited to fucking British ass Kieron Gillen.
And it's also perfect because Vader in the movies, Vader in the movies he does do bits every
I
now and
find
then,
your
like when
lack of
he's,
faith disturbing.
yeah. I mean, I love it's not from the original trilogy, it's from Rogue One, the like, be careful not to choke on your ambitions line
Yeah.
as he's choking
Mhm.
Director Krennic.
Oh yeah.
So there's stuff like that, and there's a few like sort of sardonic lines in there that are, I
Yeah.
think, pretty good. So I do enjoy that like element of how Vader is written.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys have? I have another question, but did you guys have anything else about this book that like stuck out to you that you wanted to touch on?
I think
Not
it's
really.
better than what I could have possibly imagined a Vader book to be, because he's just this character is kind of like, oh, I'm Vader, I'm angry, but I'm blah, blah, blah. And it really does a good job of creating a cool cast around him and making him, I don't want to say more interesting, because Vader's like a great villain, but it kind of gives him, some extra layers. And not really surprised when it's Kieron Gillen, but
Yeah.
glad it happened.
Yeah, Gillen definitely finds like good ways to put like, because the you have to imagine the idea of writing a Darth Vader book is pretty hard because he's a guy who's more or less like already at the top.
Yeah.
Like he had his arc, right? And like Anakin had his story. Like where do you go from there? Because he
He
is
literally had a
static.
trilogy about it.
Yeah, and he had 7 seasons of a TV show too. Like there's so much Anakin Skywalker out there.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Gillen does like a really good job, to Alex's point, of like finding something to do with Vader and sort of bringing in all the different elements of Star Wars. Like there's like the criminal underworld side with like Aphra and stuff, and then you see the bureaucracy of the Empire as well. So it's a nice little bit of there's just like there's a lot of meat on the bones that you wouldn't expect. Um, I also love. I do really like the sort of investigation that Vader does into Luke as well. Like when he learns his name, and he has like, I like that issue where like Aphra and the droids go to Naboo, and they to the coroner for Padme.
Mm-hmm.
I think that issue is fun. It's just like one of those things that like you don't even really think about things like that in the Star Wars universe, because like you never see like a coroner or whatever. But I guess he's a mortician. But
Yeah.
it's just like one of those, just like, oh yeah, there's normal stuff like that. I think it's a cool element of the book. But yeah, I think more or less that's probably the Gillen LaRocca Darth Vader. But this is kind of a broader question. I mean, obviously we talked about this series for this episode, but you can expand on it as much as you want. But I'm curious what if you guys think there's like a ton of value in telling these sort of like interstitial stories, and like how you guys feel about these interstitial stories, and if you think that there's more value in doing that versus like just leaving things up to the imagination and like stuff that happens like in between the movies and things like that. I'm curious where you come down on that question, because it is a big point of discussion when it comes to Star Wars in particular, of like, what do we actually want to, like, what should be left to the imagination, what is actually stuff that we want to see, like things of that nature. So I'm just curious where you guys stand on that.
I'm fine with like these interstitial stories and like filling in the gaps or whatever. If there's like if you've got someone with a story to tell, like I don't know necessarily how this book came about. I imagine that like they I don't know, maybe he was like, I don't imagine that Kieron Gillen was going around pitching a Darth Vader book necessarily, but like I don't want books like this to come about just because like the the company says we need a Darth Vader book. Like I want there to be like a solid creator vision for something like this. So like I don't mind fleshing out that I don't want I don't need every stone unturned in the Star Wars universe, but like if you've got like a solid creative team working with a particular aspect of the IP, like I'm fine with that. which is the case here.
Yeah, and I'd almost be like, do whatever you want, but almost don't focus too much on making it canon. Just focus on like what cool stories you can tell.
Yeah, that's I think part of the problem with like the fact that like Disney owns everything now and like everything has to be canon compliant or whatever. Like you could do more if you could just like focus on writing something cool and fun and not necessarily having to worry about whether or not it fits into the rest of the universe.
There was a comic that came out, I think, just before Force Awakens or right after, and it was explaining why C-3PO had a red arm in the movie. And it's like, this does not need to be there. I think like that kind of over-explaining, and it's like some people might be like, oh, well, but it's cool that we know why. It's like, some things can just be there, and if you look at the first 3 movies, you know, when they came out, there was no explanation of what the Clone Wars was or all this stuff, and the imagination that was good enough. And I mean, I love the prequels, and I'm glad we got that. But there is something to be said about like storytelling and leaving things up for the imagination and not trying to account for every second of these people's lives. Because, you know, like, not every second of your life is going to be all that exciting. And when you try to make every part of these characters' life full and trying to make sure it also makes sense, I think you lose a lot of the storytelling potential. So yeah, I just be happy if they just like told weird stories that were not canon, but you know, put them in Star Wars, which is what a lot of the EU stuff is. That's, you know, no longer canon, but it's still out there to read, although harder to find now.
I like that this book is not like trying to ever answer like small questions about like something that was referenced in the movie. It's just like telling a story that, you know, it takes place in between the movies. I think it just mostly comes down to whether or not it's good. Like, if I like it, it's fine. If I don't, get it out of here. But it's tough because like I am also really annoyed by like the stuff that Alex mentioned, like why does C-3PO have a red arm? Like, everyone has a C-3PO action figure. They needed to give people to buy a different C-3PO action figure, you know. But I do really like that. Like, I'm pretty indifferent overall on like Disney Star Wars stuff, but I like that they kept the EU at like, even if it's not as good. Like, I like that there are comics and novels and stuff to seek out, especially when most of the other shit sucks. It is funny because like this came out at a time when I was like feeling, I know that you guys probably obviously were not in the same, but never felt the same way. But like this came out like when they were revitalizing the EU, and it was like a really exciting time because like this came out, and then there was the Jason Aaron Star Wars book, and there were a couple like really strong novels, and it felt like, oh wow, I mean, I wish they hadn't deleted the old EU, but you know, it seems like they know what they're doing. Like, they're handling it pretty well. There were like Rebels was happening, which was not my favorite thing, but it was, you know, still pretty good. And of course, we all know how that ended up going how that ended up working out in the end. But this was when this was coming out was a very exciting time, I think, for Star Wars. So
yeah, I mean, The Force Awakens just coming out, and you know, a whole new.
This is predates Force Awakens by like
announced, I guess. So like looking forward to it.
Yeah.
At that time, being like the you know, before a lot of Star Wars stuff got filled in.
Yeah, people were like combing everything that was coming out at that time too, in a really annoying way. For like, is this hinting at like something that will be in the new movie? And there were like all these theories about like, you know, what characters from this, like, is Aphra going to show up in in Force Awakens? Which
that's funny.
I mean, frankly, it's long past time that they brought Aphra into, but I also don't trust people to do Aphra stuff after. But you know, I would like to see a Harley Quinn style Aphra animated series.
I would love that.
That is the character.
Much.
DC will never, or not DC, Jesus. Disney will never do that.
DC would never. They can't. They would, yes.
DC should acquire the rights to Dr. Aphra and nothing
just
else.
So true. They should just like make their own like thinly veiled Dr. Aphra character.
Yes. Oh, well, I think that's gonna be it for Darth Vader. Maybe in the future we'll return to this corner of the universe, talk more about Dr. Aphra maybe, but we'll see. We'll see where the future takes us.
What's that extended universe comic we're all gonna read? That's really good.
What, the Quinlan Voss stuff?
No, the one where Palpatine returns somehow.
Oh, Dark Empire.
Dark Empire. Watch out for that.
We might do Dark Empire at some point. Dark Empire is very different than this, but it's fun. It's not good, but it's fun.
Heck yeah.
So maybe we'll talk about. Maybe you guys can learn about World Devastators at some point.
That's all I want.
But, I don't think maybe that's what I'm hearing right now. Maybe that's the sound of a World Devastator. I think, did I do this bit last time?
No.
Did we talk about Dark Empire on the show last time? And
you brought up Dark Empire, but I don't think you incorporated it in.
Yeah, Jean-Luc, stop bringing up Dark Empire. It's really getting old.
It's me that's bringing up Dark Empire. Alex reads like one exposition paragraph in a Star Wars novel and is like obsessed with Dark Empire.
It's like the next novel after a novel, and they're like, "Oh, by the way, Palpatine came back but was defeated," and it's like, Did I miss this? And then I checked the novel reading order, and it's like, no, you didn't miss any novel about this. It happened in a fucking graphic novel over here, and it's like, the old EU sucks.
Yeah, the old EU, the EU used to be great. The West really fell when Disney acquired Star Wars and got rid of it. But what is that sound? Alex, do you recognize that sound?
Oh, come on. Jeff Johns, Gary Frank. That's the Doomsday Clock.
Oh, yeah.
Another book
which
we're
means
going
that
to read
it's
soon.
a time to talk about our Cry Spaces, where we talk about something that made us cry. Since in the last, I guess, 2 weeks since we last released an episode. Temporally, it's always weird. But anyway, do you guys have Cry Spaces prepared, or do you need to frantically think of one while we vamp?
That's scatting. That's not vamping. That's very poor scatting.
Alex loves scatting.
My Cry Space.
He's a big scatter.
Don't say that.
Cry
My Cry Space is that after we finish this recording, I have to work on editing a podcast because I can't
Have
work
Jean-Luc
on
do
it
it.
tomorrow because I'm no. This is a podcast that pays me to edit, so I have to finish editing tonight. So
You can pay me to edit.
How much are you paying Jean-Luc?
because because I can't work on it tomorrow. So that's my Cry Space. Even though I've had an alcoholic beverage while we've been recording, so that'll make editing way more fun.
Oh, no.
It always
The
makes it
alcohol.
easier.
True. You just care less.
Alex, do you have something prepared?
I do. It's actually
What
a
is
little
it?
bit. It's a forward cry space. It's me thinking about my future and crying.
Wow.
Because this is not going to affect you people, and by you people I mean the audience, because we plan things out wonderfully. But I'm off to Japan, and I'll miss. We won't have any recordings for 2 weeks. Unless I get a laptop there.
Are you
record
gonna
from Japan.
Are you gonna get me anything Sailor Moon from Japan?
Yep.
Hell yeah!
But the thing is, like, I know nothing about Sailor Moon, so you'd be like, "Oh, a Sailor Moon thing," and I'd be like, "Ah, okay, cool," and it'd be like
no,
Sailor
just
Moon.
you know what Sailor
cloths.
Moon looks like. Just trust me, you'll see her. She's everywhere.
She should be there.
She's everywhere.
Oh, well, we'll see how it goes. I'm getting Jean-Luc an Evangelion cardboard cutout.
I feel like you will much more easily recognize something Sailor Moon than you would Evangelion.
Like, I know what Sailor Moon looks like, but like, I don't know. Does Emily
Do you know
want
what
a Sailor
Evangelion
Moon?
looks like?
Is that the character's name? Is that...
There's not a clear.
Jeff Evangelion.
There's
Jeff
not a clear
Evangelion.
answer to that. That's not a yes or no question. Unfortunately,
I hate that already. I'm gonna get you an Oshawott instead, Jean-Luc.
Jeff
Oh, yeah.
Evangelion is
I'm
the
not
main
dealing with-
character of Evangelion.
That's good.
He's a big cool robot that's normal, and he
Right.
just goes on normal adventures. It's like a monster of the. Evangelion's not actually that interesting. It's just like kind of a monster of the week style thing.
I like Monster of the Week. So it's like
You know,
Scooby-Doo.
Jeff's there.
Scooby-Doo
Then there's
without the mystery.
Asuka, who's like his little sister type character. I don't know.
Okay. Well, you know what? I will ask around. I will, I'll have my like translation app out, and I'll be like, "Do you guys have the Jeff Evangelion statue?" And we'll see what the country thinks.
If they
Jean-Luc,
have the
I
purple
need
and
you
green
to
one,
Jean-Luc, I
That's
need
Jeff.
you to know that it took me a second for like you referring to Asuka as Jeff Evangelion's little sister. Like it took that a second to truly like sink into my brain. And I just need you to know that I hate you for that.
Fair enough.
Ahsoka's Jeff's little sister? That's so cool.
Yes.
That's EU stuff.
Yeah.
That's neat.
Yep. And much like Ahsoka-tan, actually, the reason that they made Asuka's hair orange is because Ahsoka's skin color is orange. And Asuka's actually based on Ahsoka Tano, the Star Wars character.
That's what the people don't want you to know.
Yeah.
Damn.
George Lucas actually wrote the first draft of Evangelion. And then Hideaki Anno got in and was like, I'm really depressed, and he rewrote it, so it was completely different.
Aww.
Some would say better. I would say they should let George Lucas make a live-action Evangelion.
What's George Lucas up to? He hasn't made anything since that movie about the flying planes or something.
He's working on the live-action Evangelion.
Alex, I don't know how to tell you that planes normally fly. That's like a thing that planes do.
Okay. So there's a 25-issue Darth Vader comic and planes normally fly.
Yeah.
That's fucked up. That's fucked up.
It is kind of
I'm gonna go watch Indiana Jones: The Dial of Destiny. Make my day better.
That's a cry space right there.
Honestly.
Yeah.
My cry space is that they're ruining Magic the Gathering by introducing cards based on Marvel Comics to it. They haven't shown any.
I thought you were gonna say they were introducing wokeness.
They are.
Oh, they already did that.
Oh, okay.
The wokeness patch?
Magic has had wokeness since 2015. So the ship has long sailed on the wokeness.
That's when The Force Awakens came out.
Yeah, that's when the first. Well, maybe
like
it was
The Force Awakens. Am I right?
That's definitely a YouTube. That's definitely a YouTube.
2015 is when they introduced the first LGBT character in Magic the Gathering. So that's when it became woke and the game started sucking. But no, that's not true.
It sucked before that?
It sucked a long time before that. No. I think it's fine that they have gay characters in Magic. I'm happy for them. Alessia is one of my favorite cards, so whatever.
I'm very disappointed. No one has anything about the Force Awakens, unless it's being suppressed by.
Come on, you have to go to YouTube.
It's being suppressed by the
algorithm. I am on YouTube,
Alex. You know this.
Yeah, it's getting suppressed. This is very sad.
Sad.
Anyway,
the algorithm is great. Anyway. Yeah, my cry space is just that they're putting Marvel stuff in Star Wars, and I don't like it when they do stuff like that. So in Star Wars, in Magic the Gathering.
Unfortunate.
They'll put Star Wars stuff in there eventually, which I thought we were safe from that because it's like Disney has their own card game. They just released their own card game called Lorcana. Keep that bullshit away from me. I don't want to see it. But no, their card game is apparently so dog shit that they have to farm out their properties to actual good games and ruin them. So
before we
close another thing Disney has ruined.
Before we close out the cry space, I found an image from a video that's kind of similar. It's not Force Awakens, but it is.
Okay.
It is, kind of similar.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
It's kind of got that style.
You have to look up I think the one channel is the Critical Drinker. He's the one of the woke Star Wars guys.
What do you guys think of this PNG?
Star Wars guys. Hell yeah.
So for those watching at home,
that's great. I like that.
It's Asuka Tano and Sabine Wren, and they're just ripped. And then it says the Force is female, and then in big letters, kind of like a Smash Bros. Announcer says, "Oh man."
Yeah.
And the video's called "Ahsoka's Awful: A Force is Female Disaster." They don't like it.
Well, I don't like it either, but not because there's women in it. In fact, I wish there were more women.
Star Wars has fallen, and Disney Star Wars has risen to take its. Oh my! Fuck this person. But
wait, can you send me a link to that? I might have to do some research.
Yeah. Anyway, that sounds like the plugs are here.
Thank you for sharing.
Yes. Yep.
How have I not heard the Force is female thing before? That's funny. Star Hers, the her to the. Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Sorry.
See that Ahsoka's a 50.
Have too much time on their hands.
Ahsoka is a 50 first wave feminist borefest.
Naturally.
They're trying too hard on the.
They are. It's 12,000 comments. First comment. I'm glad I've gone through my 5 stages of grief with Star Wars. Nice. You can find us on Twitter.
Dude, this guy's whole YouTube channel is just all his thumbnails are just like female characters photoshopped onto like buff bodies.
Perhaps.
I think there's something more going on.
Perhaps there's something going on.
Too much.
Yeah. Anyway, you can find us online. We're at Comics Podcast on or at Jesus. You can follow at Comics Podcast if you want. That account never tweets. You can. We're at Crying Book Club on Twitter. I'm at Mountain Liker on Twitter. I'm also JL Botchbill on Letterboxd if you want to follow me there. Alex is at Alex Hansiak on Twitter. Emily is at Mpandonata. You can follow her Letterboxd at Pandabor and her Twitch, which is also Pandabor. But I've not been entertained on Monday nights by her streams.
No, I will get back. I promise you, John Luke.
Sure.
I will make it happen.
Yeah, totally. And you can find her Empire of Podcasts, Imagine Me, Nutana, Fresh Podcast Market. That looks terrible. Some other stuff.
Yeah.
We did an episode of Warrior Chats about the Olivia Rodrigo album. That's like 2 months old now.
It was good.
But we recorded it like 3 weeks ago. I don't know.
This person, I've gone down a rabbit hole, and they have a video that's like, the top critics only gave the Joker movie a 26% positive rating on Rotten Tomato. Everything's rigged because the Joker movie's the best movie I've ever seen.
The best movie they've ever seen?
That's what the thumbnail says. It's a lot of text on a thumbnail. But the point is, Darth Vader's cool.
I mean, you're
Dr.
not
Aphra's
wrong.
cool.
Darth Vader's woke.
Oh, shit. Emily, look distraught.
No, I was in a different tab, so I had to navigate back to hit the theme song button so that we can end the show.
End the show?